Alright guys, this is going to be a quick video breaking down all of Martian Manhunter's special moves and going through some other pretty cool things he has. So to start things off, he has a special move which is a grab. It comes out pretty quick. It's not safe on block, it's -10. The cool thing about it is it leaves an untechable knockdown, so your opponent will not be able to roll after it. If you meter burn it, it'll launch them, and this is where Martian Manhunter gets most of his damage from. Another thing about the grab is, since it's a low, you can use it as a mix-up in some strings. Like for example, it's 2-2-2 string. Last hit is an overhead, so you can sneak in a grab. Only downside is, since the grab is pretty quick, I would say it's definitely easy to fuzzy guard once you get used to it. So just something to throw a sneak in here and there, but I wouldn't rely on it. Getting into his other special moves, he has a pretty cool move called Psych Orb. This is probably one of my favorite special moves in the game, just because of how versatile it is. Now what you can do with this move is, it comes out pretty quick. It's not active until the explosion on the regular one, but what you can do is you can do knockdowns and set up the orb on wake-ups, and it'll basically act like a meaty. And when it's blocked, you're at advantage. I think you're over +10. So pressure you can do on block, for example, you can do a string into the meter burn orb, because the meter burn one always launches when it touches your opponent, when it makes contact. So what you can do on block, if you want to build off the advantages, you can do a string like 2-2 orb, and then you get a free back 3 because of the enough advantage. You can basically loop that over and over, similar to Batman's meter burn Batarangs advantage. So that's a pretty cool concept of it. Now getting into the meter burn one again, this move, if I had to compare it to anything, is kind of like the Ice Clone, but in a projectile form, and you need meter to use it. Lasts on the screen for 3 seconds. If it makes contact with your opponent, it launches them. It's also pretty cheap if you have the life lead and your opponent's trying to close in on you and time's running out, so you could just be like this and continuously keep them out. And you can also have one of these out and then have a regular one out, so you can do some pretty nifty things with this move. But the best part about it is setting up the meaty orbs on knockdown. So if you do one of Martian Manhunter's untechable knockdowns, he has quite a few. He has this, doesn't have enough advantage though. You could set it up after that. If you choose to end your combo and you don't want to go for another follow-up, you can choose to end in that way. He has this, which is also an untechable knockdown, and he has this, which is another untechable knockdown. Now getting into this string, well actually I'll go into that later. But I'm just going to give you a quick example right now. So let's say you do a hard knockdown, like for example, 4-3, 4-3, then you set up the meaty orb. Now they're going to have to block it, obviously, unless they want to get launched. Or they can try and use a wake up, but again, you can just bait that by not doing anything. But let's say they block that and they respect that you're using the orb as a meaty. Now in that situation, what I noticed you can do is, Martian Manhunter has his jumping one has a really good arc to it. It looks like he's almost hitting the ground. So what I realized is, if you do an instant jump one, you can actually hit your opponent and link into a teleport, and that will combo. So going into the corner, what you can do is something like this. As a 50-50, you could do 4-3, 4-3. Whoops. Meaty orb, instant jump one for your overhead option. Or if you want a low, you can just do that and then go into back one into the scoop. So combos you can get off that is, you can actually combo off those two options, this being the overhead one. And then the low version being this one. So Martian Manhunter, if he knocks you down and he sets his orb pressure in corners, he's got some really nasty 50-50s. And of course they're not safe. If you're using the teleport, it's going to obviously be risky because it's unsafe on block. But welcome to fighting games. I mean, it's all about risk. You're going to have to take it sooner or later. Getting into his other special moves now, he has This move, which is kind of like Aquaman's trident, comes from the ground, but you get to choose where you want to put it on the field. So for example, if I want to put it next to me, I just do the move and then hold back. I have one outside sweep distance, and then I have one farther, and then I have one full screen. Now when this move hits, it causes a knockdown to your opponent. If they roll, they're going to end up farther away from you, which means they have to try and get in again. The meter burn one is amazing because not only is it neutral on block, but if your opponent tries to jump, it will literally track 24/7 and hit them no matter where they are. It'll hit them if they're trying to dash, it'll hit them if they're at the peak of their jump, it'll just hit them. And if you happen to hit them with this, what you can do is off the meter burn, you can do a teleport and then combo off that. So that's pretty awesome as well. Next special on the list, by the way, this guy has a lot of special moves. He also has a downward projectile, which you can again choose to where you want to summon it, like a lot of the special moves. You can choose to put one outside sweep distance, mid-screen, and full screen. Now with the full screen one is, if you hit your opponent with the full screen one, you can actually combo off that if you're fast enough with his instant teleport. So you can do that. If it hits, go for the instant teleport and then get a combo off that. Now getting into his teleport. His teleport has, there are two things you can do off of it. You can do the regular one, which looks like Sector's teleport from MK9, where he comes from under your feet. Or you can do the teleport and hold down, and he'll drop down from the sky, which is an overhead. And it's similar to Melina's teleport, but it doesn't quite have the good anti-air abilities that Melina's had. But the plus side is it's overhead, so sometimes if your opponent's moving pretty quick, it could randomly cross them up. But the best thing about it is on block, it's really hard to punish. It's -8 with good pushback, so I'd say probably 98% of the cast probably cannot punish it at all. So it's really abusable. Another thing about the teleport is the ground one has a lot more recovery. As you can see, he does that. He stalls for a second and then teleports. But if you do an instant air one, he shaves off recovery frames on the startup. So if you want to surprise your opponent with a teleport, you have the instant teleport is the way to go. And you can also do the downward sky one, which is, you can see how noticeably faster it is. This is the regular one. See how much slower it is, and then this is the instant air one, which is a lot faster. So that's another important thing to use when using his teleport. He can also do his teleport in the air. He has an air dash, and a cool property they gave him is he can actually use meter, 1 bar of meter, to use an extra air dash. And if you even want to do another air dash on top of that, you can choose to use more meter. So for every air dash you do, you can choose if you want to use a bar of meter, which I think is pretty good. Obviously you can't do that in real match, but you know, it has its uses. I'm sure someone will think of something. And I know he has one more special move or something. Okay, I missed 2 more. He has this move, which it's not really good using alone because it doesn't do anything like go through projectiles, which I thought it did at first, but it doesn't. It does reverse the position, so if you're in a corner and you end the combo, you can choose to end with this and reverse the position and put your opponent in the corner instead. And it also gives an attackable knockdown, which is also pretty important. And if you meter burn it, he can combo off of it. Now his last special move is this move, which kind of looks like Zod's back 4-3, except as it's way better on whiff, and on block it pushes them back. So for example, on block you could be really annoying with this move. If your opponent's trying to get in, like let's say you're playing against a character like Flash and he's going to be trying to get in, this is really abusable up close to keep him away, and you can tie that in with other normals that push back, like his standing 3, which is great on its own. So you can do things like 3 into push, and it has really good pushback. Another thing about it is, unlike Zod's, it doesn't have as much range, but it hits them out of the air, so it has a bigger hitbox. So that's good. And on top of that, what I noticed is, because I played against a Zod player and I tried crossing him up, is on wake up, it'll randomly, like, the hitbox is also behind his neck, kind of. So let me see if I could kind of replicate that. Let's see if I can do this. Yeah, see, it kind of hits behind his neck, so the hitbox is outrageous. So if people try and cross you up on wake up, it'll definitely catch them, so that's really good. Now getting into some of his normals and strings. Actually, let me go through his trait first. His trait gives him a slight damage boost and increases the range on a lot of his normals. So for example, if I don't have trait out and I do regular normals, they have the range they normally have. But if I have trait out and then I start doing normals, they have extra range. So moves like his standing 3 become ridiculous when they have that. It becomes, I would say that's definitely the best anti in the game when he has his trait on. You can also, his jumping attacks also gain extra range, so jumping 3, really hard to anti-air. His uppercut, which is 7 frames, becomes even better than it was before. All his, pretty much every normal he has gets extra range, so really good trait. It lasts for about 5 seconds and cools down to 8, so doesn't really have any drawbacks. And for if you guys are having trouble doing the instant one thing into teleport, you could always just trade up and then give it extra range, so it's a lot easier to land. Getting into some of his strings now. Now, he doesn't have the best strings in the world, but he has some that are pretty damn good. Like for example, he has the string back 1-3, which is plus on block, and on hit sends him full screen, which is pretty good for Martian Manhunter, because he seems to be really good for full screen. And the best part about that is they can't tech, so when you do something like this, you can set up meaty projectiles like that, or pillars, or orbs. And he has another good string, which I personally, one of my favorite strings in the game. If you do 4-2, this move happens to crush a lot of lows. Like for example, it'll go over Killer Frost and slide and beat it clean. But what I noticed is on block, when you do this into the low, which is 4-2 down 3, it pushes you along with the opponent pretty far, and you can make it safe by canceling into this. So, for example, if you get back in the corner and you need some distance, you happen to land a move on your opponent on block, what you can do is 4-2 down 3 and then that, and then you have some space behind you now to move. So I think that's excellent in terms with Martian Manhunter's gameplay so far. I think that string is really good. And that's about it for Martian Manhunter.